Appreciate you for tuning in to the Theory Expo. If you enjoy the content we're doing, please like and subscribe. And on that note, let's get to it. Yeah, we got some
Yeah.
new news, so we want to kind of like just get right to it. So it looked
Yeah.
like today they coming out with this Greg Berlanti rumored to be the DC Kevin Feige. Like I say, nothing confirmed. Like no offer's been sent out.
Mhm.
But it does make a great discussion because this guy does have a background as what he was basically he was the Kevin Feige for the Arrowverse, right? Like it or not, whatever you feel about it, there was a run there
Yeah.
where their shared universe worked.
Yeah.
Whether if you did, you may have not liked the show.
Yeah.
You may have not liked anything that they did.
Yeah.
Like I don't like the Flash, I don't like the Arrowverse, Arrow show, or I do like it. But at the end of the day, their shared universe worked. It was like the reason you had to watch the shows because it was like, oh, they may sneak. I mean, you know how many times I had a conversation with people, especially when they were like in their heyday, and it was like you could be able to talk because they had to watch Arrow at least around, especially when they got around at that time where they would do that kind of we can call it crisis. I know everything wasn't crisis, but you just give a name to whatever they would do. Their kind of crossover event. They did it well. Whether or not you like the show, I watched Batgirl for like some episodes.
Yeah, she got like 3
because
seasons.
I had to be But that first season, right when they had the Ruby Rose, was it Ruby Rose?
Yeah,
that
yeah,
first
Ruby
season because of the fact of what was how they were connecting that to I think that's when they did their first crisis. So that makes it interesting. That makes it. What do you think about this? Because I got some thoughts on it.
You said he does have a proven track record, right? Say what you want to say. Yeah, the Arrowverse, it has its hits and misses. Obviously, it has, and I think we can all agree for the most part when it comes to those three main characters, right? That being Green Arrow, Flash, and Supergirl. The first 2 or 3 seasons were like they didn't really miss, especially with Arrow. Like coming out the gate with
Arrow,
miss
at all. They didn't
miss. He didn't miss really with Arrow. Like Arrow was lethal. I mean, he was doing.
They did have a big three.
Yeah, they had a big three. They had a big three, and when you break down that big three, for the most part, the first like 3 or 4 seasons were compelling, right? Yes. I mean, I think we just got to a point where they start spinning their wheels because it's like we keep telling the same stories over and over again. But in terms of Berlanti, yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion because there are some pros and cons to a Greg Berlanti taking over to basically having full access to all the characters, right? Again, like him or not, and I'm not a fan of everything of all these Arrowverse shows. I'm really not a fan of some of the liberties he took with the big three he had. But like it or not, he did a lot with little. He think about this. He didn't have the Trinity, right? He didn't have Wonder Woman. He didn't have a Superman like until the end, and he didn't have a Batman ever. He had Batwoman, but Batman never was on screen.
Yeah, there was never a Batmobile.
And they basically stole Batman's. You know, they stole his all his villains and stuff and gave him the Arrow, but still,
his whole swag.
They stole his whole swag. I mean, he damn near had a Batmobile. His whole swag.
He
damn near had a Batmobile. He was Bruce Wayne and everything, bro. He was, yeah. So Berlanti, yeah, that's some pros and cons. Now giving him full access to not only bigger productions, all the movie characters, the movie rights to all the characters, seeing what he can do with more now after seeing his track record with less, with basically working within a box of like, okay, well, he was able to craft his own universe that worked, that was consistent, and that had multiple crossover events that were successful. Like he didn't really miss with the crossover events. He did his own. They didn't miss with
the crossover events.
Yeah, he did his own crisis.
That's what held it.
Right.
That's what made the shows compelling. My bad, I didn't mean to cut you, but that's what made the shows compelling was the crossover event. Like, you got to be ready for the. If I ever had a conversation with like the average person, like I'm not, but like non-bubble person. Right. It was always about Arrowverse. It was always about the crossover event.
Facts. So here's my problem, and we'll get into this. Here's my problem a little bit here's one of the first potential problems. Okay. You can't let Berlanti get too out of control, right? There's going to be some interference from the studio. I'm wondering because it feels like he got a lot of freedom with what he could control with the Arrowverse. He took a lot of liberties. He was like, the things he did with Supergirl, especially Flash, he took a lot of liberties with those characters. So, is he? Yeah, come on, Arrow was Batman. You know what I mean? Which was cool. But it worked. It worked because he was successful, and he did make sure. And I think with Arrow more than any of the other big three, the other two big three, he made sure that you could recognize those villains. Ra's al Ghul. You knew exactly who Arrow was going up against. So yeah, Deathstroke. His Deathstroke was great. For the most part, the first one was. I liked his Deathstroke a lot. So
the season 2 one, right? His man's from the island.
The dude from the island. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So now again, you give that to Greg. You give Greg Berlanti freedom to say like, okay, this is a story we want to tell. You now have access to all the characters, as long as he doesn't take too much of the liberties that he took with the Arrowverse characters. I think this could work.
To your point, because you're right. You do Grey's great. I didn't think about it from that standpoint. But when I think about it like this, one of the things about the Arrowverse shows that when you talk about taking liberties and then things got out of hand a little bit is when, just in my opinion, all the shows where they kind of leveled it better with Arrow, but it still was a definite problem. Is they all became love stories, right? And the love story within the show dominated, right? It's like love conquers all, right?
Right.
So now it was like across them all. It don't matter if it was a woman loving a woman loving a man, and it was like that. They even had one show where like it was like a trans on there, but at the end of the day, it was the same story, right? It ultimately became that, right? And to the point where like, okay, cool, man. Like, is Flash did Flash beat the mirror dimension, or was it their love that beat the mirror dimension? It's like then it was a lot. It became syrupy, right? And it was all of them became that. Arrow had that. But the best thing he did about that is that it didn't really work at the end between him and his girl, right? But there was like, and shit went sideways because he would. I don't want to make this the Arrow podcast, but he would make his own decision when he consult his lady. Right. Mm-hmm. But the other ones was like you said, we saw him. How many times did we see Grant Gustin cry? And we,
oh my God,
the things. So it was a lot of that. So
that's
what
I mean.
Don't make this so much of a human element kind of deal. So I would say he went a little bit too far with that. He didn't put the kibosh on like, hey, yo, it still is a Flash still got to be the fastest man on earth. We can't, But I'll say all that to say. So to your point about things getting out of hand, that could be the way where he don't, if his vision becomes like, okay, there's a story I'm trying to tell, under the fact that we're trying to get to this crisis, or we're trying to get to this, whatever the thing may be. But as I kind of reel that back in, their shared universe for that show was dope. For the time that Arrow did it, the shared universe worked, and it seems to be like a simple blueprint, like that people enjoy that, right? Like it seemed like, oh, it's easy to say, but it's like, no, people enjoy a shared universe. Like we look forward to that. It's what makes
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, to your point, going back to what you said about the whole love conquers all, I agree. I think we got too bogged down into this whole idea of we are the Flash. We are Team Arrow. There was too many. There was the formula of the team element, and we just all love. Our love for each other is gonna conquer all. Our love for each other. We got too caught up in that, and that's something that you definitely gonna have to work. Make sure that you don't get caught up in again. Is this formula of love conquers all. The team. If we are Team Flash, we only can do this together. It's like, no, Superman is Superman. Flash is Flash.
Yes,
he can have friends and allies, but when you come to Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, they are by themselves. You know what I mean? They're the force. They're the force of nature that's gonna save the day. It's not this whole love conquers all and team conquers all. Like, no. Now when they come together, they form the Justice League. That's the team, and that team. They can have love for each other and they can conquer all. You can do it that way. But that human element, I agree. Don't get too caught up in the human element. With that said, also just going back to Berlanti, I think that's the other thing you gotta examine is the other side of it is, does Berlanti understand the business? Does he understand it's that suit part of it, right? It's the creative side, then it's the suit part of it. I think Berlanti, he got experience in that. He's worked with multiple studios. I think Supergirl was originally on CBS. He's launched projects with separate companies. And he just happened to bring them over into the Arrowverse. He brought her over into the Arrowverse. And, he successfully integrated her on the CW. But you want to make sure Berlanti takes over. If it's a rumor, it's all a rumor, but if he was to take over, there's not a CW-ification of WB. And I think Zasloff and Allen and Horn, they'll make sure that won't happen.
Like
I think it's Horn, tutelage. Right? Horn is the other guy. Yeah.
Like you say, they may get the tutelage from them. Like you say, it's a team effort. They get the tutelage from them when they get to that other side. Like you say, and I need to bone up on Greg a little bit, understanding, like you say, there may be even other things in his background that he may have worked on different movies, worked on different things. Like you say, because Feige's biggest thing may not be just the knowing the comic book history of Marvel, but maybe knowing like you say, the suit side of it too, right? Knowing how to talk to executives, like. And then going back to Horn and especially hopefully Horn's experience with the whole Marvel aspect of it. It was like, do they have the patience? Excuse me. They didn't just go from like Iron Man. It was like, okay, cool. We got an Infinity Saga going. It was Iron Man. It was Captain America, Thor. And it was probably less pressure on them at that time than DC got walking in now. Can you stay the course? Right. Meaning like, DC came out. Hey, this is what we doing. We got a 10-year plan. We're trying to get a Kevin Feige. Oh, damn, the bar already up here now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Quiet as Kept dude ain't really do them no favors.
No, he really didn't.
Hey, the bar is plan. We got a 10-year plan. So like I'm already, so the first movie they come out with, whatever they come out with next, I'm like, okay, cool. Where's Batman at? Is Flash about to show up? Is Aquaman gonna do this? Okay, I'm looking for all those kind of connections out, maybe other than just like seeing if they can put out some quality product, right? Because they kind of set the bar already too high. Whoever walking into this, they like, woo, we walking into something, right? We need a Kevin Feige. Like we didn't know who Kevin Feige was until he was Kevin Feige, right? It wasn't like when they was doing Iron Man, I was like, oh, Kevin Feige doing that.
Yeah,
there was time,
right? They took time, and we started seeing Feige's influence more when he was pulling back on projects, right? When he was, like I brought this up before, like when he was holding back Edgar Wright's Ant-Man, when he was telling certain directors like, hey, this is how far you can go. When he was basically blocking the TVs, because he was kind of, they never fully embraced the Netflix series, right? Like they never embraced Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know what I mean? I think that's Feige's influence, where he comes in and he's like, no, this is our movie universe and that's your TV universe. So you start noticing Feige more when he started making those type of decisions. Berlanti, it's gonna be, when do we notice Berlanti? What do you think is gonna be the main influence? Like how are we gonna know, like, okay, that was a Berlanti? You know what I mean? Is it gonna be when Flash get on there and start crying, or when you know what I mean? Like, is it gonna be when they just breaking, when Batman and Superman break into a musical song and dance? Like what part of Berlanti, the Berlanti touch, are we gonna notice? Like, okay, that's Berlanti. Yeah,
that's a good question, because the one thing I always think about with another issue, and I love the Arrowverse for that one run, right? It was like the thing to watch for me, right? Because it was only TV. Like you had the Marvel movies, but if you watch anything on TV up until the Netflix stuff happened, it was Arrowverse, right? You watch a TV show, it kind of had that same format. Like, okay, something would happen, they run into the villain to kick their ass. They spend the rest of the show trying to like either bickering with each other up until the point where they got to and then the hero didn't want to listen to his team. And then by the time they got to the end of the show, he finally listens to his team and kicked the villain's ass, right? Hey, that was the show. Flash was like that every time. Every time he did that, Arrow did that a lot.
That's the formula, right?
Supergirl did that a lot.
Yeah.
And then, but then they would have some connective tissue one to the final boss, whether you liked it or not. Always had a good thing with that connective tissue to the final boss and connective tissue to the shared universe. And if you're trying to do a shared universe from a movie standpoint, that would be my first thing I would notice, and I would see that his influence is that where I feel that, right? Yeah. Pause. That there's a looming threat. There's somebody at the end of this, right? And then also understanding that there's other people in this. But if they it was always present. They did a good job of that, right? They did a good job of that. And it never felt out of place in the shows.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It never felt out of place. It wasn't like shoehorn. Like some of the things with like the DC stuff that they
Schneider didn't see that, but yeah.
They were shoehorned.
Yeah.
It didn't, it was a shoehorn thing as opposed to being like, that's happening.
Damn. Like, what is that? What, somebody show up at the end and look around. Man, what was that? Like the one dude from Crisis.
Yeah.
Monitor, you know what I mean? Like, what's his name? The Monitor. Yeah. That's a good point.
When they started off with like Reverse Flash, you know what I'm saying? And Thawne and like
great villain, by the way. Yes. Yeah. Great version of Eobard Thawne, man. Great.
Yeah. So it was like when they were doing things like that, it was like, no, he's fighting King Shark now, but Reverse Flash out there. So it was like a reason you had to watch everything. My point is, I would think from watching those shows, that's where I would understand where his impact was he able to make that make sense